Hi, and welcome to Natura's Day-to-Day Talk series. I'm Sam.
And I'm Charlene.
And we are hosts of the Great Equalizer podcast.
An honest, irreverent, and unfiltered podcast about parenting in South Africa.
Guys, we're here today not because we are experts when it comes to parenting.
Not by any stretch of the imagination, Sam.
not even thought leaders. We're here because we actually don't know what we're doing when it comes to parenting. But we know you guys can relate, because I don't think I know of anybody who can really, any parents who can call themselves a parenting expert.
No, I mean, who really has it waxed, Sam? No. We're all just trying to get through life one step at a time, one day at a time.
Look, we always have balls in the air.
For sure.
Right? The juggle is real.
Yes, that's a good way to put it, Sam. The juggle is real.
That's why we're here today. We're here to talk about that all-important juggle, which was made ever more obvious, I suppose, when it comes to mothers during 2020, where we faced this unprecedented global pandemic.
No, I mean, and on a good day, I drop many of the balls I'm supposed to juggle. And this time that we've just been through, I'm sure our viewers will be able to relate 100%. You're going to drop some balls, but you got to just pick them up, dust yourself off, and try to keep going. You don't have a choice.
Absolutely. And just the redefined parameters for us is what's made this year so interesting. I mean, last year, this time, we were looking ahead to December and to the festive season.
That's so true. I remember.
And isn't it ironic how stressed we were about having to juggle, having to wrap up work, and
the holidays,
and the holiday festive season,
having the kids at home for 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
What were we going to do with them? There's only so many crafts a mother can come up with. And then here we are.
Yeah, here we are. 7 months later, our kids still at home. Your kids are due to go back to school any day now.
Right. So this week, in fact, which I'm excited and anxious about. But, you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Well, we're here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the anxiety, that all-important mom guilt.
And don't I know it?
Yeah. So let's go back. Let's go back to March 2020 when COVID hit our shores.
I remember I said to you, Sam, did you see the first case of COVID was recorded? And you said to me, yeah, I saw. Nah, I think people must just calm their farm. In fact, we did an episode about it on the podcast.
We did. And I think we'll eat many of our words from there, because it's been quite a roller coaster.
No, that's true. That's true.
Take me back to that moment, Charlene, where you knew that Uncle Cyril was about to talk. We were all eagerly anticipating one of the first presidential addresses. And we kind of had an inkling that our kids wouldn't be returning to school in that week.
Yeah, that's true. I would be lying if I denied the fact that I asked my husband to pour me a stiff gin while we were watching the address. And I was very anxious. I don't know about what. I wasn't that anxious about having to be home with the kids or what was waiting for me. I think I was anxious about the unknown. I felt nervous and very stressed about this uncertainty that lay ahead for me. And I mean, it's just like, I think about you, to have your second baby. I felt it with both my pregnancies. It was a similar kind of anxiety, that it was a feeling of, I know I'm going to get through this. I know I've just got to get to the other side or the other end of this thing. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know I can. And I don't like uncertainty. I like to have a plan. I like to know what's waiting for me. And I think that is where I was at. I was just nervous and anxious about not knowing what's next.
Which I think so many people can relate to. And that anxiety and uncertainty just weighed on us over the course of the year. For me personally, I had just signed a big job. I work for myself. I work from home. And I really, really, really needed my kid to be at school so that I could get this deadline done and dusted. I revel in my work. I love it. But the possibility, or the very real possibility, of him not being at school during this time while I had to juggle that was so terrifying. And when our president announced that kids weren't going back to school from that Wednesday, I burst into tears. I had a good fat cry
about it. But your philosophy is you wallow in it for 24 hours.
That's it.
And then you swallow it down and you take it in your stride and then you tackle it, which I must say that's taught me such a great lesson, because I can get on board with that. I definitely tend to let things affect me for way longer than what it should.
Oh, well, that 24-hour thing did extend itself over time. You know, I had many cases. I call it my shower hour, where I just let it all out.
Just add water, and then I learned to cope.
Well, as a mother, you got to keep it all together, right? So you are you're just keeping it together for your family, for the kids. You don't want them to see you fall apart. But man, that kid goes down, and there are just some days where you just let it all out.
Yeah, you have to have that space. I think you do need to. It's like a pressure cooker. When you cook something in a pressure cooker, that little top shoots open and it lets that pressure out, because it's got to go somewhere.
Exactly. Well, look, we weren't allowed to go anywhere from that March. We call it safe at home.
Safe at home,
ladies and
yes.
gentlemen. We were safe at home.
We were.
But for the most part, we felt very stuck. And so the work from home balance began. That
yes.
balance. Tell me about what you think about work-life balance, Charlene.
Well, I have often said this, and I will say it again. I call BS on balance as a mom. It's a juggle for me. It's more a juggle than what it is balance, because there are 100 million things that you have to juggle at any point. And none of those balls are at the same point at any given time, because if they were, they would all drop. So I don't believe, in my personal experience, that I've ever managed to or will ever manage to attain work-life balance. I think I deal with the most important, most fragile ball when it is in my hand.
Yeah, look,
some are rubber, some are glass.
If everything's a priority, right, then nothing is a priority.
Right.
So we got started on, we thought we were juggling until we had our kids at home.
Well, yeah, I thought it's funny, because the year kicked off, they said 20 plenty, the year of plenty. Little did I know it was going to be plenty of tears, plenty of anxiety, plenty of worry, but also
plenty of time with my kids.
Plenty of time with my kids. And you know what? Yeah, it's a little bit of a this feeling, being like a deer in the headlights kind of feeling, because I always say, be careful what you wish for, because in the beginning of the year, I said to my husband, I want us to make our lives be more so that we work for ourselves. We are the masters of our own schedules. I want us to spend more time together as a family. Our work takes us away from each other all the time. I want us to be together more. Well, Charlene, be careful what you wish for. You might just get it.
So what did those first few, I suppose, weeks or months look like to you? Because, I mean, here we normally have, you and I are privileged enough to have help at home.
That's true.
I have a wonderful woman that comes in, or that used to come in every Tuesday and Thursday, and come COVID, for her safety and for ours.
Yeah, we couldn't do that anymore.
We couldn't. Yeah. So I was juggling work, a full-time job, and childcare, and school.
And housework.
And
yes,
school.
Schooling. Let's not forget about homeschooling our children. Thank you to the schools who sent us their worksheets and agendas and itineraries and lesson plans and all of those things. I'm grateful, because somebody had to put that work in. But I don't know, my toddlers, they don't listen to teacher mom.
Look, I was definitely not cut out for homeschooling. I can say that.
I take my hat off to stay-at-home moms and homeschool moms. It is an absolute thankless job, and I would never be able to do it.
You and I approached the homeschooling and even chores very differently, and surprisingly for me, because I'm quite an A-type personality, but I saw where this was going with my toddler, and I was like, this is going to start out as like a home holiday. I cannot have a schedule mapped out with my kids, where you were a lot more stringent and structured.
You know what I think? I think you you realized sooner than I was in denial still because I had a set schedule or a set plan. I was like, if we have structure, then I feel like I'm coping because things are under control. Except they were not under control. I didn't know what I was doing. I was hanging on by a mere thread, but I was trying to convince myself that this is going to be okay, Charlene. You have got this. And I think you just looked at the situation earlier and you were like, this is going to end badly if I try and I'm setting myself up for failure if I set out goals right now. I eventually came to that realization, but I must say, for the time that I did have the schedules and the plans, I felt good about it until I finally admitted defeat and let that ball drop.
Well, look, I was also one of those people. I baked all the banana bread.
Oh, even me. I tried 3 different recipes.
Yeah. And I think we peaked too soon. Probably by the first 2 weeks, I had made all the Play-Doh and
you're not a crafty mom.
I'm not a crafty mom, but I whipped out those crafts, man.
I made homemade Play-Doh. It was fun.
But eventually it ran out and we like, okay, but when's lockdown ending now?
What level were we on again?
Look, to be, in all honesty, in all seriousness, jokes aside, I had to make a decision quite early on to pull my kid out of school. It was the right decision for my family. We'll chat about decisions in a bit, but I did. I resigned myself to the fact that this is going to be a long haul. And I think the more energy I had in my early pregnancy, the more I was able to do all of the fun lockdown things and appreciate being at home with my family. But the more important work became. There's this great analogy of glass balls and rubber balls, and that the rubber balls you can drop and let bounce, and the glass balls, you got to make sure that as you're juggling, you're keeping those glass balls in the air. And often work is described as one of the rubber balls. Well, that's until you need to depend on work to feed your family.
Exactly.
So work quickly became a glass ball, and banana bread was very much a rubber ball.
Yes. And you had a friend say to you, Sam, that you're replaceable at work, but irreplaceable at home.
Yes.
Not right?
Exactly that. And which is true for the most part. You are replaceable at work, but at the same time, it's very important.
What if you want to be at work rather?
What if you want to be at
work? What if I'd rather be at work than deal with my life?
Yeah. Work is one of those glass balls now for me. It's not a rubber ball. And at the same time, I would also very much like to be fully present at work. Nowadays, we talk about living at work instead of working from home.
In this situation, that is very much the truth. You rather, is the office at home, or is home your office?
Well, and the creche is at your office as well.
Exactly. The whole world's at my office.
Right? But never before, I think, we've always had to juggle kids and work, but never before have we quite had to juggle it this way, as well as the division of labor with our partners.
Yeah, I think, look, I've got a very helpful partner. He's very hands-on. I have to give him credit. Just recently, he told me, or he told some friends, that he's actually got this housework thing down to a T. It's gotten to the point where he does the housework and I help out, where it used to be the other way around. Yes, did I want to punch him? Maybe. Did I? No. I was frustrated when he said that because I felt like that was a bad reflection on me. But to be honest, when I thought about it again, it's not a bad reflection on me. We both live in that household. We both look after those children. It is our joint responsibility. And he takes pride in being able to do that for his family. So in this situation that we found ourselves in, he's, can I say, upped his game in that area, and it's not making him unhappy, and it's not making me unhappy. We found our juggle, we found our mojo, and it's worked for us, So yes, does he still ask me, do we need wet wipes? He does ask me, and I'll say, I don't know. Have you checked if they're finished? Where do I check? He'll ask. So I don't know, for some reason, they see responsibility different to what we do. And I mean, we're talking about heterosexual households here.
Yeah, completely heteronormative, where we don't want to discount and never do we ever want to discount same-sex headed households or even single-headed households
that look different to ours.
But from our experience, I mean, we're looking at it as fathers and mothers differ in the way that they view parental and household responsibilities. And that frustration is very real for us.
Yeah, I can't lie and say that I don't ever feel frustrated with my partner.
That said, we always talk about how supportive they are, and at the same time, we speak often about that motherlode.
Yes.
And we can speak about it from our experiences, because I think there is such thing as a father load.
Quite right.
And a different weight that fathers bear to mothers. But from our experience, I mean, you have a great analogy where you talk about a woman having a million tabs open at once.
That's right, yes. Like my mind and my life is like my browser history. I've got a million tabs open and I don't really know where the music's coming from right now. That is my life, Sam. I live that daily.
I think a lot of people can relate. I certainly can. And that directly speak, the mother load became so heavy during the lockdown period. We've discussed all the added responsibility, or how the responsibility, it didn't change, but it weighed a lot more. And everything that we had to do in a day, there's another meme that's been going around that is quite apt, and I can never stop thinking about it. And it goes along the lines of, when you're trying to clean your house with kids around, it's like brushing your teeth while trying to eat Oreos.
That is so true. Like I have a visual of I'm mopping the floor, and behind me it's literally as though bombs are just going off in the background. Or you can hear that toy bin being emptied out on the floor, and you're like, no, I just cleaned that room.
Part of the juggle that we speak about is also managing that division of labor and the mother load. And we're going to talk about guilt soon, because that's a whopper all on its own. But that juggle between division of labor and mother load, and also not resenting your husband
all the time, because just because things don't occur to them the way it does to you, just because I'm trying to bath the kids, thinking about what we're going to do for dinner and worrying whether we need to buy more cheese, and it does not necessarily occur to him. But immediately guilt kicks in, and we're going to discuss guilt a little bit more, but I tend to feel guilty from time to time when I do resent my partner, because his worry is very different to mine. I realize his worry is the future, and how am I going to provide for my family? He's always thinking ahead, whereas I'm like, do we need cheese right now? It's a very different worry. And is cheese a rubber ball and the future a glass ball? I don't know, but the worry is real.
Yeah, I find my husband could be sitting playing Lego with my child and be 100% in it, and not be thinking about other things. And it would frustrate me because I'm trying to get a deadline done, and then all of a sudden it would be a case of, oh, it's dinner time, what are we having for dinner? Whereas I think a lot of women can relate. Men and women think different, or for the most part. It's also a generalization. But men and women, and mothers and fathers will be able to focus on one thing at once, and mothers will have all of those tabs open.
Dad in our household is the fun guy. Mom in our household is always the one moaning about, pick up your toys, do this, don't hit your sister, don't do that.
We're such nags.
I know. I feel like a dripping tap most days.
On to guilt.
Yes.
Guilt.
Well,
you have plenty of great stories, so I'll leave that up to you. You always mention.
Well, I mean, Sam, I think when we first met, I told this story, and it's still so real for me today, that when you give birth, and I've often heard women say this, you give birth to this beautiful baby, and straight after the baby, out comes the placenta. And unfortunately, it brings along a little friend called guilt. That friend never leaves you. The placenta gets done with whatever they do with it. And the kid comes home with you, and along comes that guilt. And I mean, your mom will tell you, my mom has told me, my grandmother has told me, it never leaves you. The same way you never stop worrying about your children, you will forever have that mom guilt.
So now tell me, as an expectant mom of my second child, can I expect double the guilt now with double the children?
Look, I don't think the guilt becomes more, Sam, but I do think you just learn to live with it a little bit more because you're used to having it around.
So why does
it's like an irritating little sibling. You can't get rid of them. You got to learn to live with them.
That monkey on your back, man. It's my literal third child now, I suppose. Why is it that we feel guilty? And I think it ties back to that expectation on mothers. And who brings that expectation? I don't know. Who's the everyone? Everyone thinks that I should be like this and this and this and this.
And often it's us doing it to ourselves. It's us. We do it. We bring that guilt into our lives. We put it on ourselves. I've spoken to Rhett about this, and he says to me, I've never, ever felt guilty about one thing I've done as a parent. The only time I may feel guilty is if I've disciplined or been too hard on the kid. And then afterwards, I feel a little bit guilty, like, shame, I feel sorry, I probably shouldn't have been so hard on the kid. But he does not feel guilty about his parenting. He thinks he's a wonderful parent. He thinks he's the best dad in the world.
Well, he probably is.
In my opinion and our children's opinion, he is. But he is not without flaws.
So what have you felt guilty about, especially during this lockdown period? I think for many mothers, I can say, have felt bad about keeping my child from school. And for so many months when they weren't at school, not having that social integration and not having that stimulation, it's ate away at me.
No, definitely. And then, I've had a lot of people say they're resilient, they're still young, they're not missing anything at school, don't worry too much. I do feel guilty about that as well. And I felt guilty about being tired of being around them.
Yes.
It's a hard one for me to admit, but I've felt tapped out. I felt I've had enough. I need to get my own space. And then immediately after I feel it, I feel guilty. But I think it's a very real, normal thing to feel given the situation. And I want to talk about it. And it's difficult for me to talk about it, but I feel like I want to say it because I'm pretty sure that one of the moms, at least one, looking at this, is going to feel, I felt that. And it doesn't make you a horrible person. I don't believe it does.
No, I think it's normal and it's okay. And we need to normalize wanting to just be a self, wanting to be a person.
Your own person outside of a wife, a mother, a friend, a housekeeper, outside of that, just the individual you used to be before all of those things. And I long for it often. It's a big battle for me. But I've found ways to make it work, which we'll get to later in the discussion.
Yes, we're going to chat about mental health. But first, I'd really like to bring up these unprecedented decisions that we've had to make during this year. Look, parents are making decisions on behalf of their families all the time.
All the time,
which is, and you know what's the worst thing? I think the worst thing is that you leave that hospital with your newborn and you don't get a handbook. You buy a new car and you get a handbook like this thick.
You buy a car seat and you get a manual with pictures, illustrations that tell you how to work this thing.
But here you have this new life that is so fragile and nobody tells you how to go about actually keeping it alive.
You know what's also quite heavy for me in that same vein of thought is that the general concept is that motherhood, it's your maternal instinct. It's a natural thing. So on the outside, you look like you've got it waxed because it's your kid and you're coping with it and you're doing what you need to do. But I felt so anxious oftentimes. I felt anxiety a lot. And my mother-in-law just the other day said to me, but Charlene, not all the time. I'm sure it never seemed that way. It was all the time. It was all the time. People think that you know what you're doing, but you feel like you don't.
No, we don't have a clue.
And you feel that way and you have to make decisions.
Inside our faces are like this all the time.
Yeah, that's my inside face. My outside face is smiling.
But again, 2020, year of plenty, hard decisions to make on behalf of our families. And we always say between you and I and on our podcast, hashtag no judgies. It's our little tagline that we go by. It is near impossible to not judge ourselves or others at any given point in time. And I think that's where parenthood and the village of parents falls way short in that we are always judging each other. And I think it stems from the human condition to always want to be right.
Right, exactly. Because if I've made a certain decision for my family or my child, I'd like to believe that that was the right decision. And so therefore, if you are doing it different, does that mean I'm wrong? Or does that mean that you're right? Is there a right and wrong?
Well,
or is there just we're taking it one day at a time and we're doing the best we can?
In all honesty, it's that. If we've learned anything this year, it's that, I mean, we always say, we call ourselves the great equalizer because kids are just that.
Yeah.
We always say Beyonce and Jay-Z, just like old Sam and Charlene had. All of us know what it's like to sniff your kid's butt in public
to check if it needs a nappy change. It's true.
That's the harsh reality of parenthood, and it's refreshing.
Kids do not discriminate.
No, they
do not discriminate. They don't know that you're a celebrity. They don't care that you're a celebrity.
Which is so great and refreshing, and that's what makes parenthood so wonderful. But at the same time, I think I've learned this year that while we are navigating the same choppy seas, not all of us are in the same boat, right?
We used to say, like, you were all in the same boat, come sit at our table. Just that's like the stuff we discuss on the podcast often.
Yeah.
But you're quite right, Sam. If anything, this year has taught me that we might be in the same sea, not necessarily in the same boat.
Some of us, and how lucky for those of us who are in luxury cruise liners.
Oh yes, I hope it's fun over there with the French champagne while I'm out here in my rubber duck.
Others are in like little canoes or rubber dinghies, just like chugging along
on these massive waves that we're trying to cope with.
But at the same, and so there's a lot of grace and mercy that needs to be incorporated into this no judges way of looking at parenting and other parents. And I mean, one of the hardest things for me was pulling my kid out of school because I knew that other parents were prioritizing integrating their kids into some kind of a social space again, and mine wasn't. And some days I felt, oh, she or he or that person is judging me because I've decided to keep my kid at home, and all he sees is this face 24/7. It's been hard on him, but at the same time, it was a decision that I had to make on behalf of my family. And you've made it a different decision. As friends and as mothers, we've had to respect each other's decisions.
And I mean, it doesn't matter what decision you make. You make those decisions with the right intention. It's to do what's best for your family and for you and for your future. When it becomes tricky is when those decisions can potentially affect another family or other people. That's what we're faced with. Like, if I send my kid to school, who is he exposed to and who is he exposing? It's difficult decisions, but you have to just take it in your stride, just one day at a time. The same you do with parenting. You cannot think about tomorrow too much and let it weigh you down. Decisions will always be part of your parenting journey, however difficult they may be.
To say that it's been hard would be really an understatement.
An understatement, yes.
So I think when looking at, because I've made a decision, does that mean
I'm right or I'm wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong?
Based on how your decision differs from mine, it's not necessarily an either or scenario, it's a both and. Why can't we both be right? Because we're both doing it for the well-being
of our families and our children and ourselves. Quite right.
So that's easy. It's a lot far easier though to not judge other people. It's a lot less easy to not judge ourselves.
This is true.
So I'd like to chat about mental health and well-being, and that it's almost a swear word in our circles at the moment, Charlene, that term self-care. Sometimes I just want to take a knife and stab at that word.
Look, it's not that we don't welcome the look, Sam, you have to take care of yourself. Remember, make time for self-care, because once baby's there will be no time. It's true. Those things are all true. Is it possible? Not always. I mean, I specifically in this time have found myself at the back of the queue when it comes to, and it ties into the motherlode, it ties into guilt, it ties into all of those other things we face as moms. We do that to ourselves because for some reason we believe that we have to be last and everybody else always comes first. And it's easy to say, but if you are not a whole mom and you are not taken care of and you're not healthy, you can't be there for your family or your kids, and then you mean nothing to them. It's easy to say that, but to actually implement time for yourself beyond the usual, I need a bubble bath with some candle lights. It's beyond that. It's what you need to do to press the reset button, to recharge your batteries, to fill your cup or empty your cup so that you have space for more, And I've had to realize the hard way. It got me down. I had put myself on the back seat for way too long, and I was feeling more and more somber, and I was disconnecting more and more from my family. And it got to a point where I felt guilty for not wanting to be around them. But then I realized it's not just because I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I don't really feel like spending time with them. It's beyond that. And I realized it's because I have no alone time. I don't go for walks. I don't read a book. I don't take time just for myself. And I'm lucky to have a supportive husband, and I asked for help. I told my family, I told you, I explained how I felt, and I realized that I don't have to feel that way. I don't have to feel like I don't matter or that I don't have time for myself. And only I can fix it. I need to take the time for myself, even if it's just 10 minutes a day, doing one thing that makes me feel good. Just get those endorphins going a little bit. And I started running. I hate running. I've always hated running. But I can say today, I enjoyed running. It's been a 7-week journey. I take that 30 minutes a day for myself, and I'm a better person for it. I'm a better mom. I'm a better wife. My husband has said to me that he can see that I'm in a different mind space altogether.
But how difficult was it to take those initial first steps and to ask for help? Because I think in this world where we are expected, or where we expect ourselves to be the perfect woman, which includes wives, mothers, sisters, friends, to be really keeping it all together, to admit defeat and to say to your loved ones, I'm not okay. I mean, how?
I think admit defeat sounds a little bit like you're giving up, but it is, you have to own it, I believe. You have to give in to those feelings and live with them a little bit. Just feel them. They're there for a reason. That is your compass to guide you. And we need to give ourselves permission to not be perfect, because we're not. We don't give ourselves permission often enough to say, I'm just human. I have flaws. I don't have it all waxed, and that is okay. We're going to take it in our stride and see what today brings. And then tomorrow I might feel different, and then I'll tackle that. It sounds very whimsical if I say
in a perfect world.
In a perfect world. But it literally took me to do that, Sam. I had to say, but Charlene, nobody expects you to be perfect. You're not a perfect person. In fact, your imperfections is what makes you real and authentic. So just embrace that. What are you struggling with? Just tackle it. And I'm such a practical person. So why was I not allowing myself to do that?
Where I often say to you, if I was in your position, how would you talk to me? What would you say to me?
What would you say to your best friend if she was telling you these things? It's true. And I would be telling you exactly those things.
We don't talk to ourselves like we talk to our best friends. And I think that needs
to be done
to end here. So Charlene, in our show, we always end off every episode with a bottom line. Because, I mean, let's be honest. Charlene and I could talk.
I think that's clear.
And talk.
Well, we should have a podcast.
In fact, we should.
We should. Let's think about that.
So we could polish off probably a couple of bottles of wine, not now.
Yes.
Obviously, we're
soon.
Responsible mothers. But we could quite easily just gab on and on and on without any real constructive output or,
needing it to reach an end point. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That said, we always discuss the very real juggle of motherhood and the motherlode, and spousal resentment comes up quite a bit.
Yes.
But all of these things that we've chatted about today, but I think in light of the difficult year that we faced, There's definitely a lesson here. There's definitely a bottom line.
There's got to be a bottom line.
So what's the bottom line for you?
Well, I mean, Sam, the reason why we have our podcast is to just talk about these things, to normalize, I suppose, the struggles that you and I face day to day. And I think the bottom line for me is that out of all of these things that we discussed today, we will continue to discuss these things. And I think if we can take away from today's discussion that it is important to continue to talk about these things, because that's how we're going to help each other. That's how we're going to navigate this journey. These problems or challenges that we face as mothers, it's never going to go away. There's always going to be something that equates to, I suppose, a pandemic. I suppose the pandemic's a bit extreme to compare it to. But there's always going to be something in your life and in your parenting journey that is going to challenge you beyond what you think you can handle. I think for me, the big takeaway is talk about it. Talk about it with your partner, with your family, with your friends. And sometimes you might not feel like talking about it, then simmer with it a little bit. But let's help each other by talking about it, because you might say to a friend, I've really been battling this week with X, Y, and Z, not knowing that she's battling the same thing and was just too proud or too scared to say it. You know, it's normal. These things we feel, it's normal.
To be vulnerable is actually to be really, really open and honest, but it's a scary thing. Although we've seen time and again where we've been vulnerable, it's always helped somebody else. And so we hope that this talk can help others. Charlene, you said something to me, and that's my bottom line for this discussion, is that we've been so worried about our family's well-being during this time as mothers. We've been so petrified that our children won't be resilient enough to come out of this standing and to flourish out of this, that COVID and the year 2020 will have marred them in some way. It's been a very real fear, I think, for a lot of parents. It has been for me, certainly.
Yeah.
But you pointed out to me that our kids are resilient, and we often underestimate how resilient we as mothers are. And I think that's a big bottom line for me. Was this year difficult? Are things with regard to parenting still going to be difficult as our kids grow?
Are we always going to have to juggle?
Yes.
Yes.
Are we always going to have to lower our standards? And
probably.
drop those rubber balls, and sometimes maybe even those glass balls. They will land on the floor at some point. But did we die?
Did we die? No, we did not.
And so, Charlene, I think what I want to say to you, my friend, is keep on at it. Keep your mom game strong.
And so I would say the same to you. Keep your mom game strong.
And to all the viewers out there,
keep your mom game strong.